Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the latest installment of the Writers Podcast. I have with me today, all the way from across the ocean, from my ancestral home, even though I've never been there, from Holland. Hello, Machiel. How are you doing?
Hi, good evening. I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
And I should say your last name too, Machiel Boek. Great to have you
Typical Dutch.
aboard.
Yeah.
So you're here to
Thank
talk
you.
about your book, The Girl Who Changed the World, correct?
That's correct.
What's your elevator pitch for this book?
This is a book about the secret of life. This is the book
Ooh,
I would have wanted to be able to read when I was a young adult, young grown up, because
okay.
I was just, yeah, I was looking for the secret of life. I wanted to know why everything was the way it was, and I couldn't find the answer. And throughout my life, I read over 2,000 books on religion, on secrets of the world, on extraterrestrial life, the old ancient civilizations. And for me, this book has combined everything into a story that I can relate to and that I can find the interesting. So I wrote it first for myself,
Okay.
and I would have wanted it to be available when I was much younger.
Okay. Were you a big reader growing up?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. What type of fiction or books do you like to read?
Well, mostly nonfiction because I was looking for these answers. So I
Okay.
read fiction, of course, but the most
Mm-hmm.
of the books like about spirituality, I read all the ancient scriptures as far as it's possible to read them because for a Westerner it's almost impossible, for instance, to read the Quran. But
Mm-hmm.
I tried to read a lot of that, and I tried to find answers through my mind, through logic, through ratio.
Okay.
And at some point, I thought I had some answers, and then I discovered that the ratio is just a small part of the equation.
Okay. So, do you consider yourself a religious person?
No, no,
No.
I was raised atheist, um, but I knew there was something more, and my grandfather, well, lit up this spiritual flame inside of me, flame of a seeker,
Okay.
wanted to know the answers, my
All
answers.
right. I see from your background that you were a businessman. You were in finance originally, right?
Yeah, correct.
And I guess you didn't find that fulfilling, or that was what kind of was driving your need for all these spiritual answers that you were seeking.
Well, I was raised an atheist, and my father was a CPA, an accountant, and he was so
Mm-hmm.
enthusiastic about it. I choose that same profession, so it's like the almost opposite of a spiritual person. It's like ultimate
Right.
security, ultimate certainty, the ultimate
Right.
truth in
Mm-hmm.
numbers. Um, and of course, it gave me some satisfaction, but I learned indeed that those were not the answers I was looking for.
Right. Um, how did your parents or your family, how did they react to your um, exploration of these types of topics?
Well, my father died not that old, and at
Oh,
that point, I was already convinced that I found some answers and that there was, in my view, more to life than birth and death, that there was a continuation. So I tried to tell him that on his deathbed, and he said, "How do you know?" I said, "Well, I think I know," but he wasn't convinced that it wasn't true and that it was just one once in a lifetime opportunity, and then everything would be gone.
right.
So they were a bit skeptical on that side, but that doesn't matter for me. For me, this is um, it was an exploration of things I thought were important and are important, and I wanted to, of course, spread it share it with the world, and the fact
Mm.
that it has reached a lot of readers here in the Netherlands and changed a lot of lives. That was really amazing to me.
Okay. Do you, uh, what was the precipitating event that uh, finally made you decide to write this book?
Um, I at some point had sold my business. I had to
Okay.
stay for 3 years in a row in order to get my sum of money.
Mm-hmm.
That was part of the deal. And after 1 year, I was on holiday with my wife, and this was maybe the first time relaxing in a long time. So I see myself in front of a French villa, sipping a glass of cold white wine, and thinking 2 more years. I got to stay 2 more years, and then I can do what I really want. I'm gonna go searching for the secrets of life even stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And then my heart kicked in saying, "No, buddy boy, if you want to search for the secret of life, there's only one moment to do it, is now. So it's now or never, you choose." And that
Mm-hmm.
voice, it was really a voice inside of me. It was so strong and so, it sounded like I had heard that voice before, like I
Mm.
had experienced it before. I thought, that could be true. If you don't do it now, you'll never do it.
Right.
But that would mean I would forsake the whole financial security that was looming around the corner after 2 years. So it was a split second of, and then I thought, well, my heart probably knows better, and my heart is worth more than whatever money. So I
Mm-hmm.
choose to listen to my heart and give everything up. I changed my life 180 degrees at that point, in steps. And at some point, I found myself at the attic of my parents, where I left, I think, 30 years before,
Mm.
because I ended my relationship, sold my house, everything, and just embarked on a new adventure for myself, reinventing, or trying to reconnect with whom I was when I was born,
Right.
um, and finding this road. And I thought, I'm going to write this book in 1 year time. I came from a business environment, so I thought I'll plan it meticulously. 1 year, straight canal from A to B. After 1 year, I've written it, and then I'll be looking for the second version. And after 2 or 3 months, that canal had become a meandering river going everywhere, except of going to be. And I just then had, and I hadn't been able to put even a single word on paper. So the message then was, surrender to the flow of life. Don't try, but just experience. Let it all flow and see what happens. And I did, and then miracles happened.
Okay. So how long was it from the time that you sold your business till the time you actually started putting words down for your book?
Let's say, yeah, it was a few months, and then
Okay. That's pretty quick.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But
So I'm curious because have you ever tried writing anything before?
small parts, but only mainly reports, of course, from a
Sure.
business point of view. I know how to
Right.
communicate, but learning to write for me was something different. I didn't even want to become a writer, but at some point I thought, I have to find the secret, and I have to write a book about it. It has to be the book I would have wanted to read when I was younger, and
Right.
that I just had to do, and to share it with the world. And it became kind of a mission for me. And I learned that I was only able to really, really write when I was just out of my ratio, just out of my head, total surrendering to whatever what would come. And then things would come, like even sentences would come from somewhere else, and I just had to write them down. The most wonderful chapter, I think, in this book I wrote when I didn't even know that I was going to write it.
Mm.
I was just tapping in with my heart, with some other energies. And at some point, I got in touch with my grandfather, who had deceased long ago, and I was able to ask him questions, like a Q&A on paper, like, for instance, Neil Donald Walsh did in his unusual conversation with God, saying, okay, he asks a question, he gets an answer. And I was able to do the same. And I was just amazed, but it worked. And I got answers to questions I had for a long time,
Mm.
to him. And then I started writing something I didn't even expect. And that was,
Okay.
for me, the recipe.
That's pretty interesting. I'm just also curious from a more pragmatic viewpoint. Business writing, because I come from that background, is pretty tends to be pretty dry, and a lot of it's passive.
Hmm.
When you're writing a book of fiction or nonfiction, what category is your book? I forgot to ask that. Is it fiction
Fiction,
or
it's fiction. I want to tell a
non-fiction?
story, to have people engage, and to have
Right,
people to really suck into what and they want to know, to find
right.
the answer.
So they could relate to this to what you're
Yes.
talking about exactly. So that makes my question even more prescient. Is how did you find that transition from business to fiction writing?
Yeah, good question. I don't know. Um, yeah, I think just by trying to place myself in the heads of the protagonist and the person in the book, and trying to make them come alive, and
Hmm.
just have the real world conversations. But it's about a 13-year-old girl and her grandfather, and getting in the head of a 13-year-old girl. It helped that I was in a new relationship, and my wife already had a daughter, and she was roughly that same age at that point in time.
Oh,
So
because that was going to be
I
my
could,
next question. Why did you choose a
relating to
girl?
that, I'm trying to get under her skin. Yes.
Okay, okay. Um, Now, when once you got going on the book, what kind of a writing routine did you have? did you have like a daily word count, or did you just sort of write when it came
None.
to you and you wrote in spurts? Like how did that go for you?
Like Scrum. No, I started with this protocol, like business wise, and it didn't
Yep.
work out for me
Right.
at all. So I had to let that go, and I
Right.
only could write when I was just in flow and in tune. So the only things I could plan was 1 or 2 weeks out of the house in a cabin in the woods. Um, I isolated from anything else and just let it flow and go, and that worked for me. Otherwise, I couldn't do that.
Hmm.
So no
So
routine at all, except
that must have been a very exciting period for you, because this is something totally new to you, and especially outside of a work environment. Just sort of like, you know, channeling your muse, or capturing your muse and putting it down on paper. That must have been a
yes.
very amazing experience for you.
And frustrating because it didn't the pace wasn't the way I wanted it to be. It was much slower because I first was the book that needed to be written first,
Hmm.
because I had to experience the things myself before that. So it took a long time, much longer than if I'd known that up front, I think I wouldn't even have started it.
So how long did it take you to write?
10 years.
10 years. Okay, that's not unusual for a first book.
I know now, but I didn't
Uh,
know them.
yes, but that's a kudos to your perseverance, because it's, a lot of people fall by the wayside when they're facing that kind of a long journey with writing a book. I'm wondering now. So you've got this girl, Lisa, and what is her arc in the story, or what is her what is she trying to accomplish in your story?
Well, she is just a normal girl, but she had some setbacks in her life. Her parents divorced. Her father had has had an event which was very negative to her. She's
Hmm.
bullied at school, so for her it feels like she's, of course, a teenager, first years of teenager, and she feels like the world is all against her. Nothing is
Hmm.
going the way she wants to go, and everything that she wants to stay the same changes. So she's
Hmm.
just sad and disappointed. And her grandfather recognized it and wants to help her discover a secret of life, which would help her to turn everything around for her. But of course, he
Okay.
doesn't give her the answers. He gives her a project for a week long to discover step by step how
Right.
things, if you are open to it, could work. And of course, she bites into it. She enjoys it. But also faces some challenges. And of course, she discovered that her grandfather isn't perfect either,
Right.
because he has a dark secret. And she
Mm.
unfolds that secret step by step. And at some point, she needs to confront him, saying, if this is the way you behave, telling me A, but doing this yourself, you're doing B, you're not walking your
Right.
talk, then you cannot have be my grandfather anymore. And that just shakes him so bigly that he has this major catharsis for himself. And of
Mm.
course, in the end, both their world change. She discovers the secret and he reconciles with his past, and he really then becomes the one walking his talk.
Wow. That's sounds pretty heavy emotionally. Um, did
It is, but
your
it's also wonderful because
right?
it's about ancient themes, and I learned that a lot of people reading it can relate to it. But I also got some mails from even a grandmother of 80 years old. She said, my psychiatrist made me read your book. I didn't want it, but he would stop treatment otherwise if I wouldn't read it. And she said, I read it. I didn't like it at first, and then I had to continue. And at some point, I came to this chapter. And when I finished your book, I had to call my son, and we hadn't been in touch for 20 years. And now we reconciled. I see my grandchildren again, and now I can die happy and
Okay.
fulfilled. Well, that was goosebumps for me, and that was all I actually. But that was more than I would and than I had expected.
Right. Okay. So I have to ask the big question then. Uh, what is the secret of life, or do I have to read your book to find out?
What is, yeah, of course, there's no big deal because the secret is not how you call it. This is not, it's not, it's playing out, it's playing out in the open. But the way you
Uh-huh.
come to that, and this book is like a chameleon, so it adapts to the reader.
Okay.
Um, but if you would call it that the world is your mirror, that is a saying, that is a way of looking. But if you look at the ancient scripts of Christianity, Buddhism, everywhere you can find this point saying the world is actually not a flow of events outside of you that come to you. It's
Hmm.
actually a flow of events that come out of you. You create it, but the way to understand how you create it, you come to quantum physics. We talk about a little bit about that as well. How do you create the world? How is that possible? Because we are told, especially in the Western world, that everything is the way it is. Everything is tangible, and it's nothing to do with the observer, with me. Where quantum
Mm.
physics comes in and say, hey, it's all about the observer. There are even theories in quantum physics saying if there's no observer, there's nothing out there. So the observer creates reality. That's, of course, the theory and something abstract. So how to make it tangible, how to make it palpable, how can you make this work in your life? That is what this story is about, and giving you also some tools to practice it in your own life and to see how things change.
Okay. So you said were doing a lot of research. Is there certain philosophies, religions, or whatever that influenced you the most when you were writing the book, or?
Um, as a child, I thought the world was a big mistake. I thought there was something wrong. I was afraid of masculine energy being potentially this destructive, aggressive, um, dominant,
Hmm.
and those were I didn't of course think in those archetypes, but I learned that you can look in a way that life might not be a mistake, but the intention, the way everything happens, is there for a reason. It all makes sense. How can you make sense when people are suffering, are dying?
Right.
Um, it is easy to maybe abstract, get that, grasp that, or apply it in your own life on minor aspects. But when there's the bigger questions, then it becomes all a bit different. And I think the concepts where religion becomes non-exclusive, it's more like Buddhism, or like again Neil Donald Walsh described. But there's so many angles and so many approaches to that. Saying if you don't look at it in an exclusive way, but on an inclusive way, then you can even explain um, the biggest fears, the biggest disasters from a point of inclusion, from a point of love. And
Mm.
um, that's helped me to embrace the aspects of feminine and masculine energy. I thought I was afraid of masculine energy, but I needed to embrace that masculine aspect of myself. And I was then able to balance the masculine and the feminine. And what's for me, I discovered was okay, our world is so out of balance with this dominant masculine energy and this suppressed feminine energy that we need to restore that balance because
Mm.
otherwise we will tilt over and our world will we will destroy ourselves.
Okay. So that's a lot. And
It is, yes, right.
did your philosophy change any since when you started the book until when you finished it? Because that was a decade's worth of life
Sure.
experiences. Did
Yeah,
your
because
did
I
it
needed
get
to
more
find
refined or
refined and simple.
and simple?
And
Okay.
writing down is something,
Hmm.
is one thing, but applying it in your everyday life, every single moment, became
Hmm.
the challenge. And
Sure.
I think I was able to do it to a certain extent, but life presents you with new challenges and new events that you hadn't foreseen. So,
Right.
um, for me, yes, it was a constant reminder of okay, come back to the principle of love, of gratitude, of radical gratitude for everything, and the
Hmm.
concept that everything makes sense. And how can you make sense of things that are so heartbreaking when there are people suffering, when there are children
Right.
involved, with the worst possible scenarios? When we look at the world these days with so much conflicts and wars going on, and people
Hmm.
just wanting to kill other people because of having a different background, religion, or call it a race, whatever it is. That is unimaginable, but trying to get that into the concept of everything makes sense um, helped me. And it's still a challenge, of course, each day
Right.
because life throws at you new challenges every time.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so it took you 10 years to write this. How long did it take you to get it published?
I thought writing was the hardest part. Then getting it published was, yeah, again, as every writer knows, of course, harder.
Right.
No one want to publish here in the Netherlands. Then we had COVID lockdowns, and I thought I'll just go print 2,000 copies and just give them to everyone in my village. So I visited
Okay.
2,000 mailboxes in around and just put the book in a small note,
Yeah.
and that's um, got so many reactions and so many people responding to that it triggered the publisher to say, okay, this is interesting. I want to publish it. And then it all, when it was
Oh.
published, no one wanted to buy it, of course. So I had to find a way to market it. And I thought, well, the book is good, so why do I have to market it? So it was about, again,
Mhm.
getting into the angle of publishing and marketing.
Sure. Yeah.
And when that was, I was able to do it, then it started rolling and it became a bestseller here. And then I thought, hey, I now want to bring this to America because this book has it's my mission to change the world. I am that girl wanting to change the world as well. So where better to do that than in America, the country which has such a big influence in the world and which is, in my view, such a masculine country,
Mhm.
where we could need some change. So then
Right.
same story again. Having it published in the US is a yeah, again was a hurdle, and then getting it sold as well. So I'm still
Mhm.
working on that.
Okay. And your book is now available on your website, Amazon,
Amazon, of course, yeah,
and
and of
any other outlets, maybe in
I think
Europe
some
that.
small bookstores in Europe, of course, and in some other countries. But when I started, I thought, okay, I want to be published by a New York big publishing house, and of course, at some point, you say, oh wow, that's impossible, and maybe it's not
Yeah.
even the way I want to do this.
Right.
I learned a lot in that process.
I bet. I bet. So you've got this book under your belt now. Do you have any future plans for other books?
Sure, sure, sure.
Hmm.
Because this entered a certain point in time, and of course, history repeats itself. So it's already unfolding. And the funny thing is that I got this script I had it in my head, but I got it downloaded at some point that I wrote it down in 15 minutes, and it just was done. I only need to fill it in.
Hmm.
So that's upcoming for in the next few months to be finished, and that is about today's world, about where we come from, about how AI fits in, and how we can um, create a world that is able to last for 10,000 years.
No. Wow.
I think.
You definitely think big. Secret of Life, 10,000 years.
I don't know where it comes from. I'm a, I'm a
Yeah.
small person. Yeah.
Is this also a fiction book, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
Eh,
it's a sequel, of course. Um,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Sequel to The Girl.
Yes.
Oh, wow. And the girl is still the protagonist of this story?
Sure. She will be the woman changing the universe.
Wow. Wow. And do you see this as a series or a trilogy or?
Trilogy, because the third part will be, of course, she, of course, because it's the young girl, the small, the young adult, and then the older adult, of course, the phases of
Right.
life with different
Mm.
views or viewpoints.
Okay. So how far along are you with the second book?
Ask the writer how far he is, and the answer will be I will be finishing it soon, but I would definitely want to finish it before summer. I have
Oh,
no doubt.
okay. Well, that's pretty good. How long have you been working on that one?
Also, a few years, but shorter than the other one, of course. It's
Oh, okay. All right.
as you know, probably it's things start already when you're finishing the first part, and then you say, okay, this is how I want to continue. This is how I want to do it further.
Right. Right. All right. Very good. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention that hasn't come up?
No, I think this I sometimes have to remind myself this is writing a book should be fun, reading a book should be fun, and of
Right.
course it becomes a heavy topic about secret of life and feminine masculine energy and how to save things and ancestral pain.
Hmm.
But I wanted to be the writing process to be fun, and I wanted to be the reader to have fun reading it, and I think that's
Sure.
what I succeed. But it's um, for me something that I sometimes need to remind myself, saying, "Okay, you think you're on a mission, but
Hmm.
keep it down, boy. Just you need to write something for yourself first." And I think every writer
Right.
knows that you're writing for yourself, and then if other people like it, that's a bonus.
Right. Right. I'm curious, what part of the writing process do you like the best? Do you like the first draft? Do you like revision, or what part do you like
Oh,
the best?
I like just the creation process. The revision is I'm not sure how you feel about that, but that's more teething,
Mm.
isn't it?
Yeah, but that's also where you can refine and strengthen the story too, right?
That's true. That's totally true. So it's that's a very um, You're right about that. So it's a more detailed process, and you go through it over once more, and that allows you to refine it, to sand it, to polish it. That's totally true, totally right.
Right.
And I like the
Right.
first creation, the first putting it on paper, getting it molded,
Hmm.
and getting it structured, and then leave it for time to simmer.
Yep, fair enough. I've heard different answers from different
I
writers,
imagine.
so there's no wrong answer. And if you like the creation part, some writers do. Some writers really love the revision because that's where they think the story
Hmm.
really comes to life. But everybody's different, and that's just that's just how it is.
What do you like best?
um, I think revision, because I just think that the story is kind of raw. Like this
Mhm.
revision, you can smooth off the edges, bring certain elements of the story clearer into focus, and a chance to, if you have a theme, to make sure that that stands out a bit better, without getting preachy or anything like that. So yeah. All right, Mikhail. I think that's all I've got. Is unless you've got something else you want to talk about, I think we're good.
I think we summarized it, and sometimes you need to make it contain it, to have it, to make it compact. And I like that. As I said, I like your podcast on that one, and on what you do. And
Thank you.
I like the conversation. It was really nice to talk to you, and thank you for having me.
No, well, thank you for taking the time out. I want to wish you the best of luck with your future projects.
Thank you very much.
And
Wish you too.
yes, thank you. And enjoy the rest of your evening.
Will do. Thank you very much.
All right. Take care now. Bye bye.
Bye bye.